All right, Peter. Here we are.
Okay, Bill.
Another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Oh, boy, here we go, folks.
Oh, that was my throw like that. Episode number 226, Peter.
Hey, Bill, before you start, I'm going to give you some voice warm-up exercises. Me, la, la, la.
Right?
Get you ready. You got to warm up for that stuff.
Yeah, probably. It came right out of the bucket. Jumped right out of bed and jumped right over here, and that's what it gets. It's a broken voice.
Grog. Hey, Bill, what's it about today?
If you think that I just jumped out of bed, then you are freaking crazy.
Oh, boy. Who jumps out of bed anyways?
Yeah, exactly. Today's episode is called, it's episode number 226, Revealed, people. Revealed. Advanced creative real estate financing without money.
Wait a minute. Financing without money. That's counterpointal. That's counter everything.
I think we call that in the English language an oxymoron, which is why I wrote it, Peter.
The oxy or the moron?
On the second part, the latter of the two.
Make me the oxy?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that one is.
So many novice and new real estate investors actually think money is the name of the game when it comes to real estate and wealth. Oh, they're so underwater with that. Truth is, if you think you need a lot of money to buy and control huge real estate profits, forget it. Just plain old forget it. In fact, if you are flat broke with a colorful past shown on your credit report or afraid of your own shadow when it comes to the money, this podcast is just what your wallet doctor ordered.
Okay.
I lost my place. And you don't have to work on a long drawn Yale or Harvard type education. I would venture to say, Peter, from my own observation with my own little eyes, that most of my best successful students were low C or low D students in high school. In other words, study and teacher nightmares. If you truly desire very well-paid rewards for being a dumbass like me by simply getting into action, then hang on to every little symbol in this episode and you will come out the other side smelling like the richest person in your family. When I wrote it, I actually wrote, you're going to smell, I'm going to do it anyways. You're going to come out smelling like the Donald Trump real estate guy in your family. But with everything going on with him right now, I figured that would not be a good thing to do.
Some people are twitching already.
Yeah. Make sure you listen to this a few times and get it digested and understood, okay? Peter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that is not unprecedented, but I'm going to back up. So that, do you hear the thing? Beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep, beep.
the truck is backing up. Move out of the way.
I'm going to back up because I don't know why. I have this gut feeling that I need to undercut a lot of crap, especially when it comes to money. So we're going to do that today.
You mean go simpler, go more basic, more to
so when you get the concepts in this podcast, then all the deal making, the deal structuring, the financing, finding people should just fall in place. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
And I have no idea because, sometimes I get a lot of my ideas because, I read a lot. But I will have to admit, I have to readily confess, you really got to get this, Peter.
Yeah.
I dived into the ocean of Ben Settle. And I just bought his latest book, Press. It's about the press.
Oh God.
His press.
His
how he prints his books and his newsletters and all that stuff. And I actually have 7 months worth of newsletters written.
Yours.
I wrote 7 months worth of newsletters that I'm going to print and send hard copy. You're not going to find them. Yeah, because most of the people in our group are our age and we like to read. Most of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be something that will be on the internet or in a PDF document or anything like that. These are hard written. Most of them are 20 plus pages long. And the name of the newsletter, as of now, which might change, is Dealology. Okay, the study of making deals. And all it talks about is making deals. It goes into depth. So it's like between listening to us here and being in my coaching group. It's like in between. So it's like I like dive into stuff there that's really, but anyways, I got 7 months written. I have been waiting since May. Since May, I've had these written. I refuse to start my newsletter business unless he teaches me how he does his. So I waited from May until October for this book to come out. He promised he was writing it, and I waited from May until October to write it, and it was not cheap.
And that must have been really hard for you to wait.
Yes.
Wait. Not you.
I don't like to wait. I don't like to wait.
Oh, I don't either.
So anyways, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but my point is that I normally read quite a bit, but I've been in this book and I've been in Ben Settle's world. So no, I don't know why this podcast is in my mind. It's like in the back of my mind, like gnawing at me. So I just decided we're going to just do it. The hell with it. To hell with it, Peter. To hell with it. So here we go.
Now, Ben Settle is not, for people who don't know as much, he's not really a real estate guy, but he's like a message guy, how to get message to people.
All Ben Settle does is buy houses for himself that he lives in Oregon. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything with real estate. No, Ben Settle is like. I am so glad I found him. I won't tell the story today because it'll take another 5 minutes. But I found him by accident from somebody I knew. I went to a seminar on how to do search engine optimization because we had a business. Em and I had a business doing that, and we were really good at it. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, I met a guy there that had a big email list, and I asked him. Anyways, he tipped me off to Ben Settle. This is years ago. It's got to be 5 years ago, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he has like this underground list. He's a phenomenal copywriter. And if you don't know what copywriting is, that means salesmanship on a page. But, most people when they write copy, he's just so I started listening to him about, email marketing. And then next thing you know, I started buying books. I have almost everything he owns. I think there's one more book I got to buy. And I was thinking the other day that I might go buy it. So if one of my students comes along and buys my course or does something, like that in the next couple of days, I might take that money and just go buy it because honestly, you people, meaning you and the listeners, benefit from this because he gives me a lot of ideas on how to explain myself and how to actually describe the business, simply. He's only like 35 or 40 years old. We actually had him on here as a guest speaker one time.
Yeah, he was. It was a great show.
Anyways, enough of Ben. So let's get on with the podcast. First, let me do my housework. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you're listening to this podcast or watching us, then subscribe, especially if you're on YouTube or if you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, make sure you subscribe. Please go give us some reviews because that's like our report card. And we want to know, are we doing a good job or aren't we? So that's a great place to give us reviews. Also, if you're on your phone or actually anywhere, if you're on a tablet, on your phone or on your computer, in the description of this podcast, I put a link in there, and it's where you can get 25 plus free things, all the way from scripts to checklists to videos, all downloads. Desiree's right on top of it. Thank you, Desiree. Desiree said the Ben Settle podcast is episode number 150. So she said she listened to it yesterday. Thank you, Desiree. So she's hot shit. So anyways, make sure you go, either subscribe to the channel. Make sure you go to the free stuff downloads, which is in your description. And also realize that we're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. Like this morning, we're a little bit early, but usually around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, we stream the recording of the podcast that others will listen to later. Just like Desiree's talking to me, you can go into either YouTube or Facebook and you can ask questions because the screen's right in front of me and I will answer your questions as we are doing the podcast. Okay, so that's my housekeeping. Second, I don't want you to think that when I start out today that you've heard what I'm talking about before, then dismiss the rest of the podcast. Okay, so just don't do that. That would be a huge mistake on your part, a huge mistake, because what happens, Peter, and you have more experience in this because of your background with teaching, is people will say to me, well, I knew that already. You just like put it in good words, right? Or, well, that kind of makes sense. He's not really teaching me anything new. In other words, you don't have a shiny object. So like, I already got it. And you like dismiss it and don't take it as creditable. I could tell you after doing hundreds and hundreds of houses and many deals and talking to, now at this particular point, it's got to be hundreds of clients because I talk to them every week. I mean, I do free consultations. I do, 7, 8, 10 a week, I think. So I think at this point, I probably talked to hundreds of students. I've talked to hundreds of sellers. I've talked to hundreds of buyers. And I talk to 7,000 or 8,000 people a week with the podcast and emails and on the phone. And, so I talk to a lot of people. You'd think I'd have a sore throat by now, but here's my point.
Bill, you listen is part of the point.
Yeah.
And you learn from that.
Yeah.
And you find out a lot of things. That's really the point as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So the hardest thing in the world in my life at 56 years old, soon to be 57, the hardest thing in the world for me to do is to make things simple. You would think because it's simple. No. To be able to dumb things down so they're simple. And I'm not even talking to teaching. I'm talking about just in my business. I struggle with that every single month with goals to like, how can we make this easier? I'm going to give you a classic example, okay? And I'm totally diverting, but just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of hiring now 20 years I've been doing this, and we have a guy that's kind of like doing some coaching with us, right? And he brought up this point, that you should have an administration assistant. Well, I took that a little bit further because one thing that I know is when I have salespeople, because I've had a lot of salespeople work for me, salespeople are usually very good at selling and they really suck at the administration, all the paperwork and the orders and all that stuff. And then you get a salesman that's really good at the paperwork and the admin and he really sucks at sales. So finding that right person in the middle is kind of hard. And I've been trying to do that for 20 years. So I just decided, after listening to this other guy, that why not just hire the salesperson and administration person?
One of each?
So no, there's one. The administration person can run multiple salespeople.
Right.
Okay. So now check this out. So we have a CRM, which is a customer relation management software, right? Mm-hmm. Now check this out. I have figured out that here's how we're going to do it. Right now, there's a problem with the tool, our scraping tool, because Zillow made some wicked changes this week. We covered it last night in the Deal Mastery call, but Zillow does not allow the owner's phone numbers for FSBOs to go on the site anymore. So we were scraping Zillow, and Zillow doesn't allow it anymore. They took the numbers off the site. So that's a real problem for me, which we'll figure out. But anyways, and back to my point, here's what we do, or what we're going to be doing. The sales administrator, okay, emails the person like you. Like if you have a lead, she's going to email you like, here's your lead.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to call and do an opening call. Mm-hmm. And then when you're done, I set up a Google Doc just for you. and I'm gonna show you how to do this. You have an app on your phone. You're gonna push the app, and you're gonna push the microphone on the app, and you're gonna do speech to text. And you're gonna say, I just spoke to John Rodriguez at 143 Main Street in Wallingford, and here's what happened. Blah, 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 blah. You let go of the button, you're done.
Wow.
So now the admin person goes in and takes that transcript and puts it in the CRM and puts it all the places they need to do, and the admin person does that. Right? Good morning, Reggie. So it's taken me 20 years to figure that out, plus technology to catch up.
Yeah,
you would think that's really simple, right? But it's like, first of all, I had to figure out, it took me 2 hours to figure out what to use as a recording device that could transcribe. And when Emma was the one who actually straightened me out, because she's really good with docs, Google and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How simple is that? It's like really simple. So you talk to somebody on the phone. You don't have to do any paperwork. You don't have to do anything. All you do is open up your phone, push the app that says Google Docs. It's going to open up a Google Doc that has your name on it. You push the record button and say, hey, I just spoke to John Smith at 143 Main Street in Wallingford, and here's what happened. He said this, and I said that, and it's like, and it texts, it types it as you're talking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually have that. I haven't been using it lately, but I've used that.
It's really easy.
It is. You just have to watch a little bit because some of the words come out cockeyed. You just have to, clean it up.
If you talk slow, yeah. If you talk slow and there's no background noise.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's there.
So that's my point in making something. I'm going off a total tangent there. We're not supposed to be talking about that. But my point is how long did it take me to make it that simple?
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's bizarre. All right. So
in education, the more you learn about a subject, the simpler it gets. It looks really harder and harder as you go, but then you get to the point like, oh, I get it, and you see all the pieces like a puzzle fits together. Yeah. You go, oh, you just do this, and then you're done. Right. It's really, really simple.
All right, good. So let's continue. Yeah, it takes a while to get there. So there's a lot of moving parts in this stuff. So last thing I want to say about the housekeeping stuff is you should listen to this podcast at least 3 times and take notes if you could. Because I really believe this is a pinnacle of your career. I really do, and it's going to be really simple. You're not going to think that. You're going to get to the end. You're going to be like, "What do you mean?" Just listen. But if you listen to it a few times, I plan to reveal some stuff we talked about before, but under a different light, so it becomes burned into your mind. Okay. I believe the number of times over any type of material breeds certainty. Okay? Here's why. Maybe this is your first podcast, or you haven't done a deal yet. You'll listen and have your aha moments. Then you go off and maybe you talk to a seller. Like I know this happened to Desiree. She's here with us. It's like, she would listen to this stuff for 1.5 years, she said. Right, listening to all kinds of, and then she went into a house, didn't even try to buy it. She just went into a house and talked to a seller. And the first thing she said to me is, "You're right, Bill," and that part's not important. But you're right, Bill, because now that I've talked to a seller, all the stuff you were telling me makes a lot more sense. So now go back and listen to the podcast there. Go read the materials again. You'll have a whole new light on that topic or on that training because you now have a different place to look at it. So just to rest my case, Peter, you're sitting there and I'm sitting here. And if we had a table in between us, like we used to, right? You're sitting on one side of the table, I'm sitting on this side of the table. And I take a bottle of water and I put it in the middle of the table. Do you agree that you're going to see a side of the bottle of water that I'm not going to see?
Sure.
And vice versa, right? So unless we spin the bottle around, you don't know what I'm really looking at, right?
Nope.
Okay, so that's exactly what I mean, because it depends on what position you're looking at the information on how you'll retain it. Because if you're looking at the bottle of water and it says it's got a 5-cent deposit, and the bottle does, and I'm looking and I'm like, no, it doesn't. I don't see that. It doesn't have a 5-cent deposit. We could actually have a debate over that because of your position and my position on the bottle of water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we could disagree easily just by where we're sitting and what we can see.
Sure.
Understand? So when we say things or do things, you may not think they're important until you actually get in the house, until you start doing it. You're like, oh my God, that is simple. Right? Or you might say, oh, wow, oh my God. When I do say what would have to happen for me to buy your house today, it really does work. Oh my God. You watch the wheels spin and their faces change, and sometimes the color of their skin changes. And you'll start observing that, and you'll be like, oh, that sentence is really important. It is a simple sentence, but look what it did to my deal.
Yeah, no one else ever asked that question.
Right.
No one else that was in the house, realtors, investors, anybody, they never asked that. So right. Yeah, they really the wheels turn, because it's just almost a shock to them as they put all their thoughts together. What do I really need here? What do I really want? What do I do? What do I do? This guy might buy the house. What do I got to say? And you find out. You find out.
Okay, so let's start with Mr. Nelson Rockefeller and his quote. Okay. Yeah. And again, remember, I've talked about this before, so don't discard it. We're done with the little, little preliminary stuff here. Let's dig right into meat and potatoes. Let's start with Mr. Nelson Rockefeller's statement, or his quote. Here it is. The secret to success. Those are not mixed words. The secret to success.
Oh, secrets.
The secret to success is own nothing but control everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if you look at the history of this, his family had a lot of money. So his generation was about protecting the money. Right? It wasn't about making the money. It was about protecting the money. His grandfather was the one that made the money, and there was such massive wealth that the rest of the generations was about protecting the money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Mm-hmm. So take a moment and just digest this. Why do you think Donald Trump, the President Trump, has not revealed his tax statements? It's not what the Democrats say. And I'm not taking a stance here, by the way, and I'm not even trying to stand up for Donald Trump, although I would, because I think he's done a good job as a president. I don't know about his personality, but as a president, he signed a lot of bills. I'm going to tell you right now, Peter.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you right now. This I'm very strong about.
Mm-hmm.
So we make this podcast in the middle of an election that it's the endless election. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know how much, because this is November 5.
Listen to me loudly. Listen to me loudly, very, very loudly, without picking sides. This I do know. Mm-hmm. I have heard Joe Biden in multiple interviews, at least 3 interviews, say that one of the things that he's going to do right away is he's going to change the capital gains tax from the current low 30%, that I think it's actually high 20%, that Donald Trump had just reduced to 44%. You know what that means? That means every flip that you do, almost 50% of your money is going to go to taxes. So you make $30,000, that means $13,000 or $14,000 of that money is going to the government. 44%. Just think about that.
It's one thing when you think about, a number, a 4 and a percent. But when you think of money in your pocket, I just came back from the accountant from a few months ago, and he saved me so much money because the law gives you a break. Self-employed people pay taxes, and there's no sick days, there's no vacation days, there's no match 401ks. We got shit. So what we make, we need to hang on to live and to do more business. You take that away, what the hell is that going to do? Now what?
Exactly. Now, on the heels of that, he mumbles kind of under his breath, because he's not as overt with it. In other words, not as open with it. He wants to remove the 1031 exchange law. Imagine that. He wants capital gains tax to be 44% and no 1031. So a 1031 exchange means that, like, we have a 3-family that we're selling, right? And whatever profit we made there, say we make $50,000 profit.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, we would have to pay, under Joe Biden's law, we would have to pay 44% of that $50,000.
$22,000.
Right?
Mm.
With the 1031 exchange, we could take that 50,000 and put it on a like kind of a building. In other words, another investment property similar to what we have. And we can defer the taxes onto that building and not pay the 22,000. So, like, in a particular case, like what we're doing right now, is we're going to take that 1031 exchange. We're so far off topic. But we're going to take that 1031 exchange, and that $20,000 that we, or $22,000 that we were going to pay the government, we can now technically overpay for the property we're buying, because we were going to give that money away anyway. So where this guy is asking for a $375,000 deal, he wants us to pay $375, and we think it's worth $350. We could pay the $375 because we actually have government money that we would have normally had to pay with the taxes to put into the deal, and we can actually overpay. How do you think all the New York guys are paying so much money in Connecticut right now? Just for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, I kind of went on, I diverted there. So the point in Donald Trump, I believe, not showing his taxes is not because he's not paying taxes. It's because he's the king of using other people's money to invest. He makes his money in royalties, not in the real estate. So if you read some of his books, he'll openly say the way you make money in real estate is to use other people's money.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason why I think he doesn't want to show his tax statements is because they're already attacking him viciously, like rabid animals, right? So if he were to show his tax returns and they find out the people that are behind him lending him money, they would start attacking those people. I think he's just protecting his investors personally.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I'm not smart enough to know what the president is doing, but that's my take on it. Okay.
Well, it certainly is an angle, because we've seen people boycott certain stores, chains of stores, because they're pro. Right. And, whoever you're for, it's got nothing. Going to buy lumber at a store, or a Coca-Cola at another store, or chicken, nothing to do with politics. Just leave that out of it. But people will do that too. So it's not beyond reality that what you're saying wouldn't happen.
Right. So let's dive a little deeper into the money. So let's talk about the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First, let's define stock.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So a stock or a share, because they're synonymous. I mean, they mean the same thing. A stock or a share is also known as a company's equity. Equity is profit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which represents, so it's a stock or share is also known as a company's equity, which represents ownership in a company or a corporation, and represents a proper proportionate, that's the word I want, a proportionate claim on the asset. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So a stock is ownership of a company proportionate to how many stocks you own.
Right.
So
you're buying a piece of a company.
Yeah. So let's say a company has 1,000 stocks and you own 2. Your ownership is proportionate to you have 2 stocks out of 1,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. Stock ownership implies that shareholders own a slice of the company equal to the number of shares that they bought or held or hold.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, next. What's a stock option? Okay, a stock option gives an investor the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell the stock at an agreed upon price or date. Okay?
Yeah.
The stock option gives an investor the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell a stock at an agreed upon price and date. There's two types of options in the stock market. There's a thing that they call a put.
Heard of that.
That means it's a bet against the stock that will fall. So you're betting that the stock is going to reduce or fall in price.
You can make money betting that it will fall.
Right.
Oh, geez. I'm not going to ask too many questions. We'll be here for an hour, but go ahead.
Think of it this way. If a stock is $100, right, and you buy it on the fall at 95, and then it falls down to 90, you can make money with that. Because people buy stock when they're falling.
Okay. Yeah, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And then when it goes up, they make more because it goes up.
Right. Okay, so that's a put. So a put is a bet on a stock that's falling. A call is a bet on a stock that will rise. Okay? Does that make sense?
Theoretically.
Okay. So let's reel it back in now because we kind of went into the stock market a little bit there. All we need to know here is that you don't buy the stock until you have a buyer on the other end. So you use your rights. See, you're buying the rights to sell this stock, right? That's a big word, the rights. In other words, you have the right to sell the stock. So you use your rights to sell the stock with only the money you paid for the rights. You didn't come up with the full stock amount.
Right.
Like say Apple's $2,000 a share. I won't pay $2,000. I might pay $100 for the rights for a put or a call right. You know, for either a rise or a put is a decrease, a call is an increase.
Right.
All I'm doing is buying the rights for a certain time period, for a certain dollar amount and a certain time period.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So this happens the exact same way in real estate, except we don't have the call and the puts. We don't bet on it going down. We bet on it only going up. Okay, because that's just how real estate is.
Right.
When you use an option agreement, you are only buying the rights to sell that property. Right?
That's right.
You don't actually buy the house yet.
Yeah, you don't have the deed. You don't have all the responsibilities if anything goes wrong. Just the potential right to do so.
Right.
Okay.
So the seller is giving you the right to sell for a predetermined price by a specific date. So if you had a house, Peter, right, and you want $200,000 for it.
Yep.
And I were to write an option agreement with you, which is the rules of my rights. And you say you want $200,000 and you're going to give me 90 days to go get $200,000 and bring you the money.
Right.
So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find you the money. And when I bring it back to you, you're going to accept it as a deal.
Right, and the seller can't back out. He can't change his mind. You made the deal for $200,000. You bring it, done.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he could change his mind. He's not stuck. So suppose you and I had an option agreement for 3 months, and then a realtor came along and said, "I want to list your house," and you're like, "Yeah, I want to do that." You can do that.
Yeah.
The difference is you have to tell the realtor, I need an exclusivity, or I have this guy named Peter that has an option with me, and if he comes to the table, your contract, we're not paying you a commission. Realtors don't like to do that, but they can do that.
Right.
It's 100% legal. So what I tell people is, let's have a competition. You got two people now trying to sell your house. You have the realtor and you have me trying to sell your house. Why not do that? Right?
And which one does he get more money with?
With me, because we don't have to have all of the seller's fees.
Right.
right? So with a realtor, you're going to have their commission, you're going to have all that, the negotiating fees, the deferred maintenance, the cost to sell, the closing cost. You're going to have all that stuff in there, right? With me, you're not going to have any of that because I'm going to make my buyer pay for all that. So when I agree to give you $200,000, that's a net number because I'm selling above and beyond the $200,000, and because I'm doing most of the work, I'm not going to have those 12 to 15% in closing costs. My closing costs, and by the way, I'm not even going to absorb those closing costs in my profit. I'm going to make the buyer pay for those closing costs and their closing. Mm-hmm. So I'm just assigning my closing cost fees to my buyer. Right? And why would the buyer pay all them? Because the buyer normally wouldn't be able to buy this house for the way it is. Let me give you an example. I'm getting ahead of myself. If you sit down with somebody and you go over the cost to sell with them on a $200,000 house, and they realize that it's 12 to 15%, even if they think they're really clever and you give that, and they realize that it's going to be at least 10%, that means if you gave them $180,000 for that house, right? Mm-hmm. You're giving them full asking price because if they collect the $200,000, $20,000 of that money is going to go to all the fees in the deal. The lawyers and the title guy and taxes and negotiation, repairs that you're going to need to do. Even if the house is really pretty, the inspector's going to find zoning problems, and I call it bribe money. You're going to have to pay the seller, I'm sorry, the buyer to come back into the deal because the inspector is going to spook your buyer with all these fake things that are wrong with the property, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
So now if I were to pay $180,000, it's no different than if he were to get a sale for $200 in the realtor system, right? So the realtor would have to sell for $200, I get to sell for $180. So now the realtor is going to list it for $200, right?
Yep.
I could technically list that property for $185. I sign an option agreement for $180, right? I put it on the market for $185. Mm-hmm. My buyer comes along, I write a purchase and sales contract with them, and I tell them I have an option agreement on this property, and I explain what it is, and you're saving $15,000, mm-hmm. and you make $5,000 for just selling that property.
Right.
But you're $15,000 below what the realtor is, so you're going to be more appealing than the realtor, and you could still make $5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. That's miraculous.
Yeah.
So if we were to write an option agreement with you, like I said, for the $200,000, I would have to assume that it's a pretty house that needs very little work or money. And I'm going to give you $100 legally to bind the deal.
Right. That's the option.
Here's what happened. I, by law, bought a little sliver of equity or a share, just like in the stock market, a share of your property. Okay? Mm-hmm. Which now means because I'm considered an equity partner with my option, I do not need to have a license, a realtor license or any other kind of license to go put this thing on the market and sell it. Okay.
So I heard that one way you could explain it, if anyone asks, is you're not an agent, you're actually a principal. And
yes.
You're a principal, meaning you're a main person. Even if it's a small piece, you're still the main person.
So by buying the rights of the equity share, just like in the stock market, by buying the rights, it makes you a principal, yes.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Now watch this, Peter. Suppose I were to keep this option in place and assign my rights to another person.
Yeah.
Because I'm agreeing to pay you $200,000 and I'm agreeing to do all this stuff, right? So is it possible to pay $100 for these rights, then sell them or assign them to another investor or an end user, meaning the person that's going to live in the house, for say $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 or more? Mm-hmm. So did I really buy or own this property?
No.
Or did I just control it?
No. Well, for $100, sorry, you can't own it. But for $100, yippee, you can control it. And now you are Nelson Rockefeller.
Right, exactly. Now let's take this one step further. I get the seller to let me use the house while I have this right to sell.
Mm.
And while I am, or someone else is, occupying the house, we establish some ground rules, like how much to pay each month, what is considered a late payment or default, who repairs it, does the maintenance on it, who cuts the grass, plows the snow, who handles the neighbors when the music's too loud.
Yeah, that one.
Right?
Yeah.
Now here comes the extraordinary part. All these rules and guidelines you set with your seller. Okay, so you make all these arrangements with the seller. So basically, you're telling the seller they can collect rent without landlord obligations because you're committing to all the landlord obligations. I'm committing to that as the buyer, as the acquisition manager. I'm committing to all of that. I'm going to cut the grass. I'm going to plow the snow. I'm going to pay you monthly. Here's how much. And if I default, here are your rights. And when you explain that to your seller professionally and cleanly and understand it, which is why we have 226 episodes of this podcast, is to help people with that. When you do that, and the most powerful word when you're doing this that I can explain on how you get deals is confidence.
Mm.
When you do that confidently and you know what you're talking about and you feel good about it because you understand what I'm talking about in this podcast and others, they do the deal because they want the money. They don't want the landlord obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making that possible. Okay. Now there's some listeners right now that are like, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want those obligations. Okay. Now here comes the extraordinary part. I thought I was doing really good, but now this is like in a realm of extraordinary. This is like above and beyond everything. All those rules and guidelines you set with your seller, those are also assignable. Okay? Which means even though you're agreeing to the repairs, the maintenance, the monthly payments, the grass, the snow, etc., you're going to assign all that responsibility and all those hassles to your buyer, who's actually going to be in the house, using the house, living in the house.
And also planning on actually buying it. So they're thinking, this is our house.
Right.
So why wouldn't they cut the grass? Why wouldn't they take care of it? I mean, if you're in there and the light bulb goes out or Bill, I had a tenant that the shower was kind of leaking, it was dripping. The plumber went in to fix some things and he looked at it. He did this.
He twisted it.
So a tenant won't do that.
Right.
But an owner will like, honey, the thing's loose. And he goes, oh, I got it, sweetheart. And he tightens it.
Right.
There's weeds, he pulls them,
It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
It's our house. Unless you're a slob, it's your house.
Right. Now here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all these occupancy, in other words, the rules of you living in the house is the lease portion of the deal. That's a lease or a rental agreement. All that stuff is in a document by itself. So the option to purchase is one document, and all the rules of occupancy and what you're going to do and how you're going to live there and all the rules are in another document. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you might wonder, okay, so what does the buyer get? Right? Well, they get a chance to live in the house he or she would normally not be able to live in. That's why they agree to all these rules and these, elevated payments and, because they're living a lifestyle that they aren't able to live without you.
Yeah.
They're able to live in a neighborhood where their kids can go in a school that they normally wouldn't be able to go in, right? Because their colorful past,
Leaving them in just an apartment and
or whatever,
wherever they are.
They're going to get a piece of ownership that they normally wouldn't be able to get because of the way our monetary system works.
Mm-hmm.
What does a seller get? Well, mostly more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They also get relieved of the landlord obligations.
Yep.
And a sale at their convenience, right? Like we're that 6 family we're talking about. The guy's like, yeah, because I was worried. I like preempted him. Like, if we write this contract, we gotta get through the other sale and close on it and do a like kind of exchange. We're not going to do that in 30 days. Oh no, I'll wait 2 or 3 months. Yep. It's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he's going to keep collecting rent and keep making money.
Mm-hmm. The nice part of selling and buying properties where there's already people paying the bills, not a vacant property.
Right.
That's the nice part.
Right. So this is no different. So why would the seller get more money and why would the buyer pay more money?
Yeah.
So if I have my computer in front of me that's worth probably $2,500, right? And I sold it to you, Peter, for $1,000, and you gave me $1,000 in cash. It's not a trick question, but how much did you pay for the computer?
I paid $1,000.
Okay, but if you take the same transaction and you swiped your credit card instead of giving me $1,000 in cash, and it took you 24 months to pay for it, you're no longer paying $1,000, are you?
No, because my 0% interest only lasted 12. Damn it!
Whatever. I'm just saying you're no longer paying $1,000.
It's more.
So that's the same way with the seller. If the seller can't bring with the buyer. If the buyer can't bring $1,000 to the table to close the deal, the only other option, or the only other choice is the better word, is to make payments until they can get qualified for a loan. So they're willing to pay a premium for it because it's a lifestyle they would not normally have without us.
Right. And the way I look at it, you have to pay anyways. Some people work hard, they don't get in trouble, they don't have problems like divorces or just things that happen to people. They don't wind up in that situation. They wind up having a bunch of money to buy a house. Now, if you're not that guy, you're not in that position, you still got to pay the piper. You still got to do something.
Right.
So whether you figure it out in advance or you figure it out now for the future, you pay that money later, you pay it earlier, you got to pay it somewhere. You got to pay the piper. So those people don't have a chance otherwise unless they find this kind of a deal. And I've seen people call you to do like a lease option or rent to own. They go, you mean I can rent the house and then buy it? They freak out, the ones who don't know about it. It's like, this is fabulous.
And we don't have big billboards up on the highway saying, here I am, come lease option a house. We're like a needle in a haystack because we're scattered all over the country. We're in our basement offices or in our bedroom offices or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a storefront like the realtor is, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're hard to find.
We're the rebel.
Fine. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So by the way, what's that?
They're starting to hear about us though.
Yeah. By the way, I just explained a lease that could be assigned. All that, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, take this entire concept and Take this entire concept and elevate it into a hierarchy of responsibility.
A hierarchy.
Hierarchy of responsibility.
A higher level.
Yeah. So like ranking.
Yeah.
You're going to rank it in importance.
Yeah. Hierarchy. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me show you what I mean. The most responsibility you can get in a property, in other words, the best position and the most responsible part you can get is with the deed in your name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The one below that, the next one down, is a land contract or an agreement for deed, which is you don't get the deed, but you still get a mortgage from your seller.
Mm-hmm.
The one below that is the lease option deal.
Mm-hmm.
So the lease option deal, you have the least amount of responsibility and you have the least amount of performance that you have to, least amount of, performance. You don't have to perform. You can walk away without any legal ramifications.
Right. You're not stuck.
Right. Where a bond for deed, you could walk away, but there could be some foreclosure proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
With the deed, there's definitely performance. Now, check this out, Peter. The first one, which is getting the deed in your name, okay, is a subject to type of transaction.
Mm.
That's where you get the deed and the mortgage stays in the seller's name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, we're not talking about giving them money. We're talking about they give you a deed and the mortgage stays in their name and you assume all responsibility.
Right.
If you go listen to podcast episode 169, The Insider Secret of How We Do Subject to Deal Structuring, it will explain a lot. I'm not going to do it here today. Okay. Then behind that, you would think that these would have been done in order, but they weren't. Episode number 223 is little known $1 million strategy, land trusts fully explained. Okay. That's how we get past the infamous subject to clause. Because there's people on this podcast going to think, oh, subject to, you can't do that. You better go listen to those episodes, especially episode 223, because you just don't understand how to do it. Yeah. I just did a 6-hour course with a group from Israel on exactly how to do this, and pretty soon we're going to have that. We're going to have that course so you can get the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's number one, getting the deed. So go listen to episode number 169 and 223, and you'll get a eye-opening or ear-opening lesson on how you can buy property assuming loans that people tell you you can't assume. Okay.
You know, Bill, I know one thing. When somebody tells me in any sphere, medical, real estate, money, relationships, I don't care what it is, they say, oh, you can't do that. I know one thing for sure. That person doesn't know how.
Yeah.
And maybe someone else does. Move on.
Yep. Now, number two, the land contract method, which is also called a agreement for deed. It's also called a bond for deed. It's got multiple names. And really the reason why is it depends on what state you're in and what they call it in the law.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go listen to episode number 218, a controversial but very legal way to use land contracts the way realtors don't want you to know. It will explain to you. Peter and I spent an hour and 45 minutes explaining how to use land contracts. Okay. Then number 3, the lease option. Go to episode number 204, and it's called Lease Option Real Estate Explained Exclusively. Okay. Even if you have listened to these episodes before, now that you've heard this podcast, when you go back, you'll start to notice these things. Okay?
Yeah.
You'll notice that all these deals together are a variation of the option type transaction that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Just different levels of acceptance with your seller and how much responsibility you take with managing the property or they take with managing the property. But they're all on the premise of buying the rights to this property and not paying the full price for the stock. Okay. Number 2, all 3 of these deals will fall under the premise of not paying the seller all his or her money until the buyer performs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, you can start off just doing a simple lease option to get your feet wet, because that's the easiest one of the 3 to do. And as you do more deals, you get used to things, you move up the ladder of hierarchy deals and do more and more deals. But you can quickly start like literally just going on Flakebook, Marketplace, go under rented properties and start messaging people, hey, would you consider leasing your property for a year or two without the landlord obligations and then sell it to me? And if you do enough of that, you will find someone that will say yes. And you do a rent to own with them. So you do a rent to own, just as we spoke about. You get an option agreement, you get a lease agreement, and you sublet it to somebody else. Could be done today.
Yeah.
All that is between you and doing a deal is the amount of outflow you do to find that deal. That's all that's between you and this lease option deal. Is how many people, how many new sellers do you talk to in a day? That's all that's between you and doing a deal. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
With a lease option, you don't need to know, you don't need a Yale education or Harvard education. Just understand what I've explained to you about the rights and how you can control the property without owning it, that we've talked about in this entire podcast. And the only thing between you and a deal is how many people you've talked to, the amount of outflow. Because you know what? Mother Nature's funny. It abhors or hates a vacuum.
Mm-hmm. So
if you outflow and outflow and outflow, you're gonna have to get inflow somehow, some way. Right? It's kind of like a lake, right? If you drain the lake and drain the lake and drain the lake, it's going to want to fill back up again.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's springs and there's water and it rains. That's just what a lake is. It's water. And if you drain it, the water's going to want to go back in there because there's room to have water.
Yeah. It's like a room in your house. If you have an empty room, it won't be.
Yeah. You'll fill it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can start just by doing a simple lease option, get your feet wet, do a couple deals, get used to it, and then as you get more and more used to it and get better at it, you move up the hierarchy and start doing the other two. Okay?
Yep.
The last one, number 4, if you negotiate correctly, you need no money for these deals. Your seller and buyers fund the deals. And if you get enough of a discount, a private lender with an IRA account and equity in other real estate, interest-free credit cards, savings accounts, anything like this, business that's doing really well and they have cash on hand, will carry the deal for you until the buyer can perform and get a piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need private lenders unless it's such a slamming deal. Like, for example, I'm closing on a $270,000 house that I paid $125 for.
Yeah.
My private lender's all over that. Why? Because he's wicked safe.
Mm-hmm.
Wicked safe. Right?
Sure. If anything happens, the house can be sold in a heartbeat at that kind of price. Something's a little bit above that, maybe, but
right.
Don't need the 270.
Now, in summary, Peter, what I'd like to talk about, the last thing I want to talk about is actually 2 things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the only ways that you can get money. There's only 4 places you can get money. No, 5 places. I forgot the number. Let me just rattle through them. Right? There's only, is it 4?
I think I remember 4. Go for it. Let's see.
Okay.
And we'll add it if there's another one.
The first place is the bank. And the bank wants all of society to believe that they are the only place that has money and you need to come to them. And they've done a really good job of that, so that you got to go to them. And the reason why is because it is the biggest profit center any bank has. Because if you borrow $100,000 for 30 years, you're going to pay almost $300,000 back to them. Yeah. It's a 3 times ratio. They love that.
Oh yeah, if you ever worked at a bank, you'll find that they push you like crazy, not just to take people's deposits and withdrawals, to sell mortgages. When you're
Right.
standing there doing that, they're going to push for that. They have
Right.
prizes. They yell at you if you don't sell any. It's a pain.
The bank's covert operation, any bank's covert operation, is to get as much equity out of houses as possible so people owe them money. You want to make a lot of money in this world, Peter? I'll tell you how to make a lot of money in this world. And I made this decision a year and a half ago, and it's true. Yeah. Because I read this somewhere. I don't even remember where I read it, but I read this somewhere, and I made this change. I don't even think I told you this. The more people that owe you money or are paying you, the wealthier you are. That's the way the banks make their money.
Streams of income. Yeah, I mean, home equity line of credit. Ooh, go on vacation, buy a car.
Yeah. And then pay for 10 years.
Huck your house just to pay the interest. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
My ex-wife did that for a long time. She would go whack up her credit cards, doing all that kind of stuff, and then get a home equity line.
Oh, geez.
She did that for several years, and in the end, I ended up buying the house on some sort of a short sale.
Oh, geez.
She lost her house because of it.
You know, I never heard that part. I know we've seen people do that. I didn't know you were that close to one of those. Oh, boy.
Yeah. All right, so number 2, the second place you can get money is with a hard money lender. Okay, so you have to realize that when you're asking for money, the first thing that the lender wants is confidence that you're going to pay them back. If they don't have confidence or they don't know you very well, then they're going to get a lot of fees, so that if you don't pay them back, they can take the property back at the right value. In other words, 65 cents on a dollar, and they go sell it and get their money back. In the meantime, you paid them a bunch of fees for doing that.
Right. So
that like 3 points for the loan and 12% interest and all that kind of stuff. They made their money in the front of the loan. So if I borrowed $100,000 and I had a 3-point deal, that means I'm only getting $97,000.
Right, but they're charging you on the 100,000.
Right. But I have to pay them back the 100 plus 12%.
Right. Interest.
Okay. So hard money lenders used to be their own industry, but now what they are is they're the bank in disguise.
Like
the third place to get money is from a private lender, which often you know who that is. You know the people. Like I said, they're people with a credit line on another piece of property, and they can borrow the money for 2% and sell it to you for 9% and make a profit. They're people with IRAs, 401ks, and retirement money. I have multiple people that I do business with that are young people. They're 40 years old. They work for a big corporation for 20 years and whacked up $400,000 or $500,000, $600,000 in an IRA, but they can't touch it for 20 years. So they can lend that money to me on a real estate transaction, and it's very easy to do. 401ks are the same way. My daughter Jessie bought her multifamily house from me because we used their 401k money as a down payment.
Yep.
Okay. You could do that and not have to pay the penalties, because when you do this, you don't pay penalties because the government allows this.
Okay. For your own.
It's called a self-directed IRA. It means that you can direct it to the investment you choose to invest in, instead of letting the fund manager invest it in mutual funds and stuff like that. You can decide to put it in real estate. They could have, I have a friend of mine, you know him, his name is Steve. He has, I think, $150,000 in credit card that are interest free, and he keeps rotating the cards. And you could get interest free money for 18 months. So he could literally lend me the money. He could literally lend me the money. I wonder why that rang.
Airplane.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know why it's like that. He could literally, hang on a second, I want to fix this. Sorry.
But you're saying he could, well, I've done it too. With a card, you have 0% for enough time. You buy property or use it for the renovation. I love the deal when you can buy it owner finance from the owner, give them a little bit more money instead of,
We haven't gotten there yet.
That's right, you haven't. Okay.
So the private lender they're all around you. You just don't know that.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Hang on a second. I got something going on here. 1 second. Okay, so the private lender's right under your nose because people hide money.
Mm.
They don't want you to know that they have a lot of money because they don't want you to borrow it unless they're making money off of it. Mm-hmm. So a private lender is right under your nose. They are in it, and all you got to do to find a private lender is start talking about your deals. Like I have a $270,000 house I just bought for 125 grand. I'm looking for funding. I would do that. And you'll be looking at them like, how are you going to do that? Oh, well, I inherited my mom's house and it's free and clear, so we got a $200,000 credit line on it. Mm-hmm. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. Number 4 is what you were talking about is the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so get the buyer to fund the deal for you, which is what you were just talking about. If you have a free and clear house, instead of paying them $200,000, you could pay them $220,000 because you're paying interest-free money. I told you already before that if you borrow $200,000 from the bank over 30 years, you're going to pay almost $600,000, right?
Right.
So is it horrible that you pay an extra 20 grand for this house?
Not compared to that. Hell no.
Right. All you got to do is just make sure your buyer doesn't cash you out too quick. You got to give the payments time to reduce that $20,000 to catch the equity up.
Right. You set it up that way. I mean, the one thing you have to do is never worry about any one piece of the pile. Oh, I don't want to pay that much percentage. You have to get all the math, do all the numbers, and see if it works out that you make money. If you overpay, underpaying, you could lose money. Overpaying, you can make money. Just get all the numbers, do all the math, and see how it turns out.
Exactly.
Set it up to win.
So to rattle it off, the only 4 places, which it was 4, the only 4 places is the bank, the hard money lender, the private lender, and the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm telling you in the beginning, and the reason why this is advanced is because who else is telling you this? What I'm telling you to do is with a lease option or a slot deal or a land contract or subject to, you're asking your buyer to pay for the deal. So you're asking your seller to just postpone his or her payment until your buyer is qualified to give them their money.
Bill, isn't that the same thing a realtor does? He doesn't pay for the house. He goes, finds a buyer. The timing might be different, the length of time. Exactly. But to put this in a ridiculous nutshell, it's like a realtor, but we might stretch the time. And for stretching the time, the seller gets a little more money.
Right. Because like I said with the computer, if you give me $1,000 for my computer today, you pay $1,000, which is like what the realtor does.
Yeah.
If you're willing to make 24 payments, you got to pay more.
Yeah.
So we have the buyer pay more money just by virtue, by nature of the beast, because that's how our country runs. Mm-hmm. I didn't invent this. I just observed it.
Mm-hmm.
And we pass that on to our seller for waiting.
Yep.
The trick is finding that guy that's willing to do that. And that sometimes is a needle in a haystack. So that's why I tell you the only way that you're going to find this deal is to talk to enough new sellers that are willing to do this. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, just start with number 4. You want the buyer to fund your deal for you, which means you have to find a seller that's willing to wait and let them do that.
Mm-hmm.
And much like I was talking about the hierarchy earlier with the deals, it's the same way with your money. Start with number 4. You're going to have to do more outflow. It's going to be harder to find that motivated seller. But it's just outflow. It's just if you just concentrate on talking to 5 people a day or 10 people a week or whatever, it's just a matter of time that you'll find that deal. And believe me when I tell you, this is the punchline. When you find a motivated seller, your education means crap. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you're me that's done hundreds of deals or if you're the first person if you're a person listening to this podcast for the first time.
No, that's true. My first deal, the guy kept saying yes, and I couldn't believe him. I stuck my foot in my mouth 3 times.
But he still made a deal.
Yeah, because if you find
they're motivated.
If somebody's hungry, he's not going to ask you what kind of bread does a sandwich come on. So give me the damn sandwich. Come on.
Right.
And it's fine to motivate itself. It's not like twist somebody's arm. I mean, you know.
I want to talk about an analogy of that, like what you're saying. Okay, it's a marketing analogy.
Yeah.
So I have a couple sister-in-laws that are very, well, politely, they're liberal. Okay, and they have all these like nuances. Like when they come over for dinner, you know, they have grass-fed this, and the eggs have to be a certain, you know, they can't be range-free, and you know they're $20 for a dozen eggs, and they have all these criteria, right? And I go through it. No, that's not good. There's a point where you could take it too far. I mean, I believe in eating organic and healthy, but there's a point where you could take it too far. It's guys like me that created that. It's marketing guys that created that demand for the income. Let's talk about the difference between a white egg and a brown egg.
I was just going to say.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, the brown ones are better, right?
Yeah. It was a marketing ploy because they had too many they were getting brown eggs, and people they thought that the brown eggs were the bad eggs. So the marketing guys twisted it around and made the brown eggs more expensive because they're rare.
Yeah. People eat white bread because the rich people had the white bread.
Right.
And the farm, you had the brown bread, and you know, oh, I don't have the white bread. And which one's better for you, really? You know.
Right. So I lost my train of thought. I was trying to make a point there. Oh my God.
It was we were coming off to get the money from your buyers in marketing. Oh, you have to do your marketing to find the house? I'm guessing.
Oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought. It'll come back. Anyways, the point is that you have to find these buyers and these sellers because technically you're a matchmaker.
Mm.
So you're not going to find them on every corner. You're going to have to work hard for them. But when you find them, okay, and they're motivated, they will accept anything just to get the deal done, including your lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to go get a Yale education or Harvard education. You don't need to spend, you know, years studying to do your first deal. You just need to get on the phones or start texting people and find that seller, because if you talk to enough people, you'll find that motivated seller that will let you do practically anything in the deal as long as they get relieved of their problem.
Mm.
Then you work, once you find that deal, you do it, get used to doing a deal, and then go, once you start getting more and more practice doing these deals, you'll get better and better at doing these deals. I call this learning out loud.
Mm.
You're learning as you do it. You're learning as you're talking to your seller. Desiree, who's on this call, was so gracious a couple episodes ago to tell us she told her seller it was her first time ever in a house, and they practically wanted to help her.
Mm.
She didn't buy the house. They were a suspect, but she told them, right, this is the first time, and my mentor sent me in here, and he said I should say this and I should say that, and they're grateful that you tell them the truth. You're revealing yourself. You're not trying to pretend to be something you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, you're in 2 houses. Next thing you know, you're in 3 houses. Next thing you know, you're in 4,000 plus houses like me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But this hierarchy of money, start with number 4 first, then go up to number 3, and then up to number 2. And well, I never went to number 1. I don't think I should borrow money from banks. Although you got me doing it now because we're going to go borrow money for a 6 family. So it's taken me 20 years to get up to number 1. And I'm not excited about it. I keep pawning it off on you. You go talk to them, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw an email the other day, but our girl sent us the name of the mortgage company. And it's an inside deal. She said, if you just call him without kind of, I gotta talk to him first. He won't answer you. He won't answer you.
Why is he lending money? Why? What?
He's got too many clients that. Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Right.
He's not making a commission off the mortgages, is he? Or is he?
He is.
He is. Oh, okay.
Point is he's got enough guys like us that do a lot of business that he just he stays in his side of his circle, and he doesn't need to have all the bullshit of the newbies.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because guys like us know how to do it. We'll prepare the paperwork. We'll roll along. We'll put our package together and send it to him, and it's easier money for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Jefferson said, check it out. Jefferson said, I like number 4.
Yeah. Well, you're solving the problem that people want to get into real estate for obvious reasons. but they're afraid, don't know how to do it. They're a little bit nervous about it, and they can't pull the trigger and get going. Well, start at the bottom maybe and work your way up. Hello.
So the point that I'm trying to make today, and then we're going to end. The point that I'm trying to make today is this: if you understand the way the stock market works, which we fully explained today, and you get that simple concept, that's the foundation of your education. You understand that concept of how it works, you can become one hell of a dealologist.
Mm-hmm.
You can mix and match the deals because you understand that you're just doing what we talked about today. You're making promises to your seller and having your buyer perform on those promises. And then you're in the middle, because here's the point. Your buyer wants to buy a rent to own. Are they willing to be on this podcast for an hour and 15 minutes and listen to what we're saying? Are they willing to call the 50, 75, or 100 sellers to find that seller and know what to say to them to get that deal?
I heard of it happening once. Family member, somebody, they couldn't sell the house and somebody called and worked out the lease option once. Yeah. She must have taken a bunch of courses.
Right.
Doesn't happen often.
So they're not willing to do that legwork. So they're willing, your buyer is willing to pay you to do that legwork and find that deal, which is why they allow you to make their money or make your money.
Well, isn't it
That's
better,
how you're able to do it.
But isn't it better for them in the long run too? Because they're going to be, in our system, maybe the person rents the house for 2 years on the lease and then buys it. In their system, they're going to rent and rent and rent, or be in mom's basement and rent and rent and rent, like with no end in sight. So isn't it saving them money? Right? So they're doing okay too.
Think of it this way: at the end of the day, you're helping the seller sell a house that he normally couldn't sell, or he can sell and get more money by removing all the fees.
Mm-hmm.
And you're helping the buyer buy a house they normally couldn't buy, and you're in the middle making money. And everybody knows it. It's transparent. You're not hiding that you're making money. You're allowed to make money in real estate. Anybody that talks real estate, the reason why they're in real estate, the only reason why all our listeners are listening to us today, and the reason why they have such a passion to be in real estate, because really, what other thing can you do where you work really hard once and get paid multiple times? Where can you do that? Yeah. What other industry? I'm sure there are some, but they're not as agreed upon from all of Americans that you can do that. That real estate is the safest investment that any human being could make in America. Even when the market dips, I have trouble with people that will tell me, well, what happens if the market collapses? Well, you know what? Truth of the matter is, in my 20 years, and go all the way back to the Depression in 1930, right? The market never dips more than 20%. So if you're worried about declines, if you're worried about a bad market, then just buy houses at no more than 80% loan to value ratio. So if it does dip, what are you losing? You're not losing. So you get your money back. You break even. Why do you think hard money lenders use the number 75% loan to value ratio?
Right.
Because they know if the market dips, they can still get 75%, or they're not losing all their money. They're losing a few $1,000s, and they walk away and say, oops, I should have done that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they loan that. That's why that number's there, is because if the market dips, they don't lose everything. They're losing their profit. That's it.
I didn't know that. So 20% is the lowest it goes when things.
I mean, there's going to be places, like Detroit for a while was more than 20%, but those are pockets. It's not the norm.
Yeah, and if you're there, you should know what's going to happen and adjust your money correctly.
Right.
But if you stay with lease options, you have $100.
You have no investment. So what do I always say? How do you? I'll tell you right now. This is a steadfast rule. How do you not? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm trying to figure the words out. I'll tell you the only way that you can not lose money in real estate. Right, Peter? Go ahead. Yeah. You can do the punchline.
Hey, don't put any in. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. So the only way you could not lose money in real estate is just don't put money in. And if you do a lease option and you're putting $100 in, I mean, that's not putting any money in. If you're doing what we just talked about and you're controlling the property for $100, the only thing that you have to lose is $100.
Yep.
Peter, We took our wives out for dinner 2 weeks ago, and it was 2.5 times that amount. And it was not a fancy restaurant.
The food was, though.
Right?
Yeah, and people do that all the time. I mean, I spend $100 a day just to live.
Yeah.
You know, easily over $100 a day just to live. So take one of those and buy a house and go make a few $1,000s.
Right.
And it's not, you know, by the way, it's not small money. And it's not the topic today. But between the fee you get in the beginning, the monthly cash flow you get, and the money in the end when it's sold, it's about the same money, if not more, than a whole frickin' rehab. This isn't chump change. It's you're waiting for the money too. If you're freaking impatient, good luck on a renovation at the wrong time of the year if you don't have the money. This is the same amount, little patience, and it comes in. It's like an investment. You got money coming in.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, if Mr. Biden becomes the president and gets the 44% capital gains tax, here's the thing with capital gains tax, is it's on a 12-month cycle.
Right.
Right.
So after 12 months, the percentage
it reduces.
Down. Does it go down every 12 months?
No.
After the first 12.
It's the difference between long-term and short-term gain.
So are you saying that somebody that wants to sell a house, it'd be better for him to sell it on a long term to save on taxes than to sell it all at once? Now, does that apply? That applies to not a private homeowner, though, does it? Is it more like an investor?
If he doesn't change the rules, yes. If you have somebody that doesn't live in the house, then they have to pay the capital gains because it's capital gains. But somebody who lives in it, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah.
Desiree said, "Whoa, Pete." So whatever you just said, she was like, "Whoa, Pete."
Ouch.
Anyways, the only way you don't lose money in real estate is by not putting money in. So I am here to say, in summary, and to end off, that because of the pandemic, there are a lot of mortgages that were not paid or are late. There are a lot of renters that didn't pay, and the landlords didn't have enough money to absorb that, so they're late. The national government, mainly the Trump administration, has put in place a what is the word I want? A moratorium, so that if you have a government loan, and almost every mortgage is backed by a government loan because that's what our money's backed by now. It's called T-bills, which is actually mortgages. So they have to use. There's a lot of government backing with mortgages, right?
Mm-hmm.
The courts are not all open yet, so we don't know the full ramification of how many people are actually behind on their mortgages and how much of a moratorium they have to give. I do know that as of now, we're in November. The most moratoriums go till December. If Joe Biden gets in office, it'll go longer. If Donald Trump stays in office, it'll probably stay where it is. The point being is once all those numbers start rolling out, we're going to find out there's going to be a lot or more than normal amount of people that are going to want to do a subject to deal. They want relief of a payment so they don't lose their house or lose their equity. And there's going to be more and more people that are going to want to rent to you that can afford to pay them. Because, by the way, when we sell our properties to a buyer, we get 3 to 5% down.
Mm-hmm.
That turns them from a renter to an owner. You got a $200,000 house, they're putting down 10 grand. You save that 10 grand as a cushion. So if they damage the property or if they don't
Like don't pay the rent,
make a mortgage payment, you have some money in reserve and you're covered.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you know how to do that, because we taught you how to do that, means that you're gonna have confidence to pay your seller the payments. So when you're closing the deal with your seller, you're gonna tell him this. Johnny says hi, by the way.
Hey, Johnny.
So I hope I've made my point today. I called this advanced, and I called this that we're revealing this. We're not really revealing it. We talk about this all the time, but hopefully I put this in a different light that you understand how simple it could actually be. That's what I'm trying to portray, is how simple could it be. Just pick a rent to own, pick the lowest of the hierarchy, figure out, have the intention that your buyer is going to pay for the house, not you. All you need to do is be a matchmaker. Put the boy and the girl together and hope they do well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At least get them on a first date. and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, there's been TV shows that have done that. There's internet sites that do that. There's a lot of people that do that. You could do the same thing with real estate. You remember that? Remember that show when we were kids? Something, what was it? Where the guy sat in one place and there was 3 girls on the other side of the wall. That was in the 70s. Remember that? Something. What was it called? Newlyweds?
The dating game.
The dating game. That's what it was, right?
Yeah,
I remember watching that when I was a kid.
The guy would ask, usually it's a girl asking guy. They'd ask questions and they'd pick one.
Yeah, the dating game.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter. So
then they come back on the newlywed game. Yeah. And then after a few years later, they're in divorce court.
They didn't show that part. Nowadays, there would be a TV show about that, but back then there wasn't. We were much more politer back in the 70s.
Yeah, pretending more.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so hopefully we've covered a lot here. It seems like it's the basics, but what I want you to do is I want you to go listen to some of those other podcasts that I talked about and come back and listen to this. This should be a staple for you in the podcast series, episode number 226, right? Is that right? 226, yeah. And you should listen to this more than once until it sinks in, because here's what happens. If you listen to something enough times, you'll just start saying it. I mean, that's what the news does.
Ew.
They tell you the same thing over and over and over again. 15 channels are saying the same thing, and then pretty soon you're saying it. Right? Obviously, it works for them. It could work for you. And just for a punchline here to prove that to you, I suggest to my coaching clients what they do is when they get scripts, like you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/free stuff, and you download our FSBO, our for sale by owner script. Here's what I would do. I would write it 10 times, handwrite it 10 times. Most people won't do that. They're too lazy. But what I would also do is I would get a recording device. We use Audacity, Audicty. Yeah, ICTY, Audacity, right? It's a free software. Or even on your phone. On your phone, there's a recording device on your phone. I would read the script into a recording on your phone. Mm-hmm. And then I would listen to that son of a gun 100 times. Just listen to yourself saying the script over and over and over again. And then when you're in a house, you'll start noticing that you're saying what you listen to.
Yeah, the sentences will pop up.
They'll be on your mind because you burn them in your mind. They're burned right behind your forehead above your eyes.
That's how successful athletes, artists, musicians, that's how they do it. So be a successful real estate dude.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not that hard. So get out there, start talking to some sellers and work your way through it, because now that we've explained the core model in such simplistic terms, you can think with it. Because in my business, the simplest things last the longest. Mm-hmm. They last the longest. When they're simple, everybody gets the concepts. They understand. And whenever we stop making money or things get awry, and you're pretty good at reeling me in on this, is we got to go back to simple. Right? We've been talking about this with our automated system right now, right? Because you're like, why can't we just do like we did, mail letters and use Google Voice and like call people? And I'm like, because I'm the type of guy who will go off in the weeds. And let's get this tool and let's do that and let's do this. And every once in a while, you got to reel me back in and say, let's go back to simple. And we start making deals. Cool. Don't forget to give us a review. Please subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us. Make sure you go on to, if you want to, go on to YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on all those platforms. We're streaming to them right now. Go check us out. And if you go over there, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you so desire, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and right on the front page, there's a free course. It's How to Buy Real Estate 101, I think. I forgot the name of it. I named it. I don't remember the name of it.
Deals?
Yeah, no, it's let me go find it right now.
Yeah. Deal hunting?
No, it's Creative Real Estate Deal Making 101.
Okay.
And it's right on the front page to the left of the pretty girl holding the money. So go get the free stuff. or just scroll down in your description, wherever your description is on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, and in that link, it'll take you to that page, and you can get all that stuff for free. Okay? So I hope somebody takes our advice today and sends me a support ticket, which, by the way, if you get a deal you don't know what to do with it, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, click the support ticket, and they all come to me, and I will help you to a point where I think I'm coaching you too much and then ask you to join the coaching group, but I go pretty far with that before I do that. So if you have a deal and you need some advice, go ahead and do that. And we also have a new coaching program that's $97 a month, and it actually it's called Deal Hunting Monthly Mastery. Deal Hunting Monthly Mastery, where every month I give you a different strategy on how to find deals. And we've done that for our third month now, and it's been extraordinary. We have guys in there that are on the call once a month. It's the first Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, it says courses. It's right on the top. You'll see it there. Okay? So with that said, Peter, any final words for you, or we're over and out?
Oh, no, we're good. We're good.
Right. Have a good week, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for being here.